Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tesla Life number 142, April the 1st. And no, it's not a joke. It is April 1st, all day long. But of course, if you pulled a prank on someone after the afternoon, that's no good. You got to do that in the morning. You can't do an April 1st joke in the afternoon. That's the rules.
Unless you're on the night shift.
Yeah. I think you're pulling my leg now.
Those are the rules. You're supposed to get people when they're a little bit groggy. It's even easier.
It's a little courtesy thing. Not a hard fast rule. Unless you're a company. If you're a company and you pull afternoon,
look out. You have the other employees beating on you. Absolutely. Yes. Well, welcome to the show. Let's introduce Mr. Casey Green. Joins us from the DC area. How are you today, sir?
Feeling a little cabin fever.
Can't blame you there. Cannot blame you there. We're all feeling that a little bit. Yes, Mr. Patrick Connor joins us from the West Coast. How are you today?
I'm good. Welcome everybody to the Tesla Life, where we are helping build a future free from fossil fuels.
All from our living rooms.
Yep.
Our home offices. It's with the health crisis going on, certainly it's going to last a little bit longer. But everyone just keep practicing that social distancing, and let's keep the curve as flat as we can get it. Everybody matters. Everybody doing their part certainly helps, and let's continue to do so.
Yeah, we've always done this show in a social distancing kind of way.
Exactly, yeah. It was just because we were cheap. That's all. It's expensive flying across the continent back and forth.
Yeah, but, weekly.
Yeah, that would be really expensive. So
yeah, going to expensive studios and all that. No, so the whole world just came to us.
Just comes to us every week. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this week, no shortage of news, even though things have slowed down a little bit Tesla-wise, but still quite a bit of information has popped up during the week. Our first story is about Giga Buffalo or Giga New York, depending on how you want to label it. But apparently Elon has confirmed to the state of New York that, yes, they are indeed firing up a ventilator line that's going to be built at Giga Buffalo. And that will, of course, be able to help many people, many hospitals that desperately need that type of equipment. They had indicated in the past that they've been working with Medtronic, but they've also purchased spare from China and other places, different ventilator brands, I believe Philips, Medtronics, and a couple others. They're getting whatever they can and delivering them. But certainly this ventilator line, which also I believe Ford and GM are also participating in getting a ventilator line up and running, certainly will be able to help as we get closer to the apex of cases in this health crisis. Yep. So good on them.
Yeah, they even did. They went up to everybody. These are being offered for free as long as they agree not to put these in a warehouse. If they put them directly into use, they get them for free. Free shipping, free everything.
Right. Yeah. Which is fantastic to be able to basically provide that service free of charge is unheard of, and a great step up.
Yeah. It's being a good world citizen. I love that about the Musk companies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Next, another good news story from TesBros, which is actually, I believe they're now called TesBros. They're a company that makes aftermarket pieces for different Tesla. Sell screen protector, lighting kits, those type of things to people. They have stepped it up, and they are in their extra time. They're producing face shields for hospitals. So with their printers that they have, their vinyl printers, they're able to cut face shields, and they're going to be delivering to local hospitals. Actually, there's a little video here that we will see if we can share.
Were they also cutting the fabric masks as well?
I don't know if it'll be fabric as well, but I do know it's like the actual plasticized face shield.
Yeah, they had showed some prototypes of the fabric masks, and they said they were going to take them to get certified. But this is, like you said, it's more their equipment capabilities already.
It's the equipment they're currently using, right? So
yeah,
it makes it quick and easy. All you have to do is come up with a new pattern, and you're in business.
This way you don't need to get certified. You don't need to change your blades.
Exactly. So hats off to TesBros as they help in the effort that we certainly all appreciate them doing so.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we need everybody, all hands on deck.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you're staying home or making equipment.
Everyone can join in. Do your part.
Yep.
Patrick, I understand you've got a little bit of a new plastic thingy that you wanted to show us.
I do. Yeah, so I've never had this happen to me, but I'm obviously concerned about it enough to spend a few bucks to buy this cute little toy here. And so if you plug your Tesla into a J1772 public charging station, then anybody can just come up and unplug it. And some of the cars can lock the J1772, but because Tesla uses this adapter, it doesn't lock it in place. So with this little gizmo, you can now lock it to your car. So now you add this to your adapter, and then when you plug in the J1772, they can't unlock it. And you can unlock your adapter from your car, and then you can just remove this. So together, this allows you to lock a charging station cord to your Tesla so that somebody can't just come up and unplug you. Now, sure, they could go crazy and try to break things or whatever, but most people, a small deterrent is enough. I definitely believe in the 80-20 rule, and people are usually, it's the car next to you, and they're just trying to unplug so they can plug in. Well, that's just rude. You have to wait your turn, and don't just assume. The other thing I would recommend is have a dash card on your dash that has your phone number so someone can text you if they need to charge desperately. And that way you can have a conversation. It's not just them unplugging you or trying to unplug you and failing. And as we saw in the last story, that coming together and working as a community is a whole lot better than working against each other. And so let's do that. Let's have that conversation, especially if it's J1772. That means, it could be any kind of vehicle. And at a supercharger, when you're plugged in, it's locked. They can't just come in and unplug you. So it's less of a problem within the Tesla community, and it's really a problem with the bigger EV community. And other EVs have solved it by allowing it to lock. And now there's this little adapter where you can do the same for your Tesla, so that you can lock the cord in there. If you're just convenience charging and you don't need it, maybe you don't want to use this. But if you're like, okay, I'm only going to be here for an hour and I've got to get a charge while I eat lunch because otherwise I'm not going to be able to make it to my next stop, then you can use this and no one will be able to easily unplug you. So there's a plug. You can find it on eBay. I got it for $14. It looks like it's just 3D printed. And if you have a 3D printer, you might even be able to just make your own.
Yep. So in the Charleston Club, we've got a member who, what he does is he's got a disposable phone number. So when his Model 3 charge flap opens up, there's a contrasting label, so you can tell for sure that, hey, this is not normal. It's got a phone number on it, and it says, hey, if you need a charge, call me. I think he might even have it where he's got dry erase where he can write what time he plans to be back. And so they can call or text that throwaway number, and he can come move the car if he needs to.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of stuff that goes on the dash cards. Plug in America makes a dash card where you can have it laminated and then just write on there with the dry erase and time you'll be back.
Yeah.
And it has a red side and a green side, so you can tell people whether or not they should contact you before they unplug, or if it's okay for them to just unplug you.
Yeah, the two times that this hasn't been a problem for me either, but the two times that I've seen that this is a real issue, other than, like you said, the rudeness, is people who have never seen one before. They tend to touch stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
and they'll try and unplug it. It's like, what's this? And then they'll try to put it back. On some of the pay stations, once you've disconnected, there's no way to restart it.
Yes.
Right. That is a problem.
Yeah.
So you guys have never experienced this yourselves as waiting? Have you ever?
I did.
Ever happened to you personally?
When I worked at the Chevy store, my Volt got unplugged regularly, but it was the technicians unplugging me for other people, which still would have been nice if they'd leave me enough to make it home, but I don't drive a Volt anymore, so.
I've seen this certainly happen in like grocery stores or malls or places like that where those L2s are prevalent. It's rude. It certainly shouldn't happen in the first place. For people to assume that you are done or done enough, they have no idea. So they should just basically keep their hands to themselves. And another thing that we commonly use up here is PlugShare, where we'll log into PlugShare stating we're there. And of course, there's a messaging app in PlugShare for people to say, hey, can I use your plug? I'm leaving in half an hour or whatever. So a message can be sent through PlugShare, but that of course requires both parties to use PlugShare. So definitely the card or the phone number makes sense that you can absolutely get some communication going.
Yeah, the beauty of the PlugShare is you don't need a phone number, and it's open source, and it's free for now. Not that I think that anything will happen to them, but in the apps world, my weather app just got bought by Apple and shut down. So
oh, that's too bad.
It is.
Why would they buy it and then shut it down? They just want to be.
They're not shutting it down for Apple users. But I don't need the weather on my iPad. I need it on my phone.
Right. It was put behind their gilded wall.
Yeah. Behind the paywall. Absolutely. Oh, sad.
Yeah.
Well, some other news that has happened this week is kind of interesting, relating to Autopilot. So what's happened recently is that we now have video proof of a car, Model 3, in testing with the red stoplight and stop signs active. Yep. So you can see that it's reading the light. A red line appears in front of the car. And I understand the red line's there previously before this test.
Right.
But I guess the red line is to signify perhaps that it knows there's supposed to be a stop at that particular point, and it leaves the driver not having to guess as to whether or not the system has seen it or not. It clarifies to them that, red line appears. That means the car is going to stop if the light remains red.
So when you see the red line, your car will start to slow down. If it's green or yellow, you can acknowledge and have it continue on. If it's red, it will stop. If it's indicating that until it turns green.
It's on the way. It's a very few amount of beta users. We don't know exactly whose car this is. They wanted to keep that secret. You're not supposed to reveal any of this stuff, but I think it was out of spec motoring.
It wasn't their car, but
it wasn't their car, but they released the video. Yes. So I don't know. It's got some definitive factors. Looks like it's going over a bridge there. Probably someone could figure out where this was happening, but we don't know whose car it is, and there's probably the reason for that is, of course, they don't want to be kicked out of the trial program.
There's probably enough there for them to trace it back. So the other thing is, with the stop signs are the same as stop lights. It's not allowed to go through a stop sign without stopping to zero first. So it won't roll through like California. And but the other thing is, like you said, if it doesn't show the red line, then you need to be ready to take over.
That's right. Right. So again, all of this is in beta, and of course they're trying to gain real world data, collect it, and look at instances that things go out of ordinary, so they can plan for those type of real world scenarios that the software may not be quite up to speed on as it needs to be. So,
Yep. And according to Green the Only, this worked on previous firmwares. Is a developer mode, but according to Tesla, you'll need to have updated maps 2020.12.1, and that's the one that my car downloaded the other day, which was fun. The maps actually came in before I got that software, which was interesting. Burnt out my data plan on it, and and then the next day, one of the neighbors' guests moved out from underneath my window, so I was able to park the car out there and let it finish.
You have to. It's difficult to get Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, because we have a parking garage, and so normally I just tether the phone to the car, and 4 updates in a month plus maps, it just killed my plan, and they turned me off. Yeah.
Well, from a machine learning perspective, this is incredible. So knowing where to stop actually is a difficult problem. It's not always clearly marked, and it's not always the same distance from the lights, and so that means it has to take into account intersections and other things, or maybe they've just provided it in this map data, but that sort of defeats the purpose of making it dynamic, and you don't want to be dependent on maps because sometimes things change, construction or whatever. So and then the lights, if I've been looking at this as I'm driving around, they're not always exactly centered over the lane that they indicate for, and it takes some guesswork to figure out, and it's become pretty intuitive. Just, okay, well, I'm the second lane, so I'm the second light. But sometimes some intersections are more crazy than others. There are some where I've actually had to go, wait a minute, which one am I supposed to be looking at here?
Yeah.
So if this rolls out to a wider audience soon, be careful with it. It's still a new feature. It's going to have some bugs that need to be worked out. And right now, you're still the person behind the wheel, so it's still your responsibility. But still, this is awesome. The idea that vehicles have advanced to being able to even recognize these items and show you what they've figured out. That's pretty cool. Cool stuff.
So what they've done so far is the reason they are wanting us to upgrade to that particular map is, one, it's newer, and two, it gives them kind of a baseline. They know what's in this map versus on the older maps. They necessarily didn't all have the hints that this particular version of the software is using to, hey, this is a hill and a curve, and there's a tree there. Look out for the light over there. It's still primarily vision, but it will use the map for hints. And there's actually a combo. It'll take just a stop sign or just a line on the ground that says stop. It'll take just the stop light without a bar. I don't know that there's any lights without the bar, or without the I don't think there's any bars without the lights. There's bars without signs, and it'll use all this for hints, and it'll do visual, and but they still want you in control because they're the ones that don't conform. It's going to run straight through them, and it won't slow down or anything.
What blows me away is the number of different number of different traffic lights in North America. There are so many different variants, and like Patrick said, even lane alignment is completely different. What about those ones that hang on wires, and you notice that in a stiff wind they seem to blow around a little bit? I bet you that's even going to things.
They even warn you behind a truck. Like if you're too close to a truck and it can't see, they're like, you should be ready.
Can't see it. And so there's a lot of things that have to be planned for, and I can see why it takes so long. Is because they have to try to solve for 95% of cases and then put it out into the real world cautiously with a small amount of drivers, ones they know are responsible, and then slowly ramp it up from there. Casey Casey's volunteering.
I'm a great tester, but they don't trust me. I'm a Redfoot. So in the right and left hand turn lanes, depending on how it's configured, it'll either just wait at the end when the light comes green. Same with U-turns, and on a T intersection, it'll also come and wait for something to happen. At that point, it'll actually, once you tell it, okay, I've made the stop, it'll actually disengage autopilot and cruise control. So at that point, you'll have to manually drive around the corner.
Yeah.
So
I'll even tell you guys that when in my neck of the woods, all the lights are basically on poles. So there's no wire lights, okay?
Yeah.
And what I noticed when I go to Buffalo or somewhere close to Southern Ontario, a lot of these places have those wire lights that X across an intersection.
Yeah.
And what I find as a Canadian is I get real close to the actual painted line. In fact, I'm usually stopping on the painted line. And a lot of the times I'm going, where's the traffic light? It's gone. It's like not, because I can't see it. It's above me.
That's what I like about the Model X.
At least, but in a regular car, it's blocked by the roof. So you got to be careful. And certainly this is going to have a lot of those things come up, and it'll be interesting to see how it progresses.
Curious about the cities where the lights are on a pole, but in the corner of the intersection, like Charleston and Charlotte. Those older cities, New York sometimes.
Yep.
Like they're still on poles, but they're not anywhere near the lane.
They look like they're crosswalk.
Yes.
They're for the crosswalks. Exactly.
I wonder if that's why I always saw the crosswalk as a traffic light. Maybe it's already ready.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So for something like this, you want to get to a high level of reliability, like 5 nines, and we're maybe at 1 9. And in each 9 is like an equal effort of the previous one, even though you're getting a much smaller return on it. Yep. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but this is awesome to see that the first 9s is there. That's cool.
I'm ready.
Exactly.
I'm ready.
And Casey's volunteering. He's ready to go. So second 9, give Casey a call. He's ready to help you out.
Great tester.
Absolutely. I would definitely give Casey the call. Definitely. Our next story is a bit of a letdown for the EV world. Recently, we did hear stories from GM EV Day and from Ford about their Mach E and other cars that they want to produce. Apparently, someone got some figures from GM and Ford. Don't know if they're completely accurate, but what they're saying is that GM and Ford combined are to produce about 5 million EVs in 2026. So 6 years from now, they want to be up to about 5 million between both companies. Basically, that rolls out to be about 320,000 EVs a year over that time period, which, of course, Tesla sold more than that last year. And will this year, if not for the health crisis that's currently upon us. And this story was just indicating that are the other automakers really in this all EV that they talk about, or are they holding back and continuing to give us the same lines that have plagued them for the past 5 years?
Both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird time. They are trying to stay profitable, and EVs are still low margin. Battery prices will come down. I kind of get the impression that at this point, as long as they are planning on growth, that if the battery price drops, there's going to be some crossover where it's more profitable for them to make EVs than ICE. And when that happens, it's going to be a huge change. So that's kind of the more important inflection point than what they have planned. I don't really care what they have planned. Because they're 5-year projections. Why would you assume that they're right?
They haven't been right yet.
That's certainly true as well. They haven't been right to this point anyways, when it comes to EVs. I
would change that a little bit to not say that they're necessarily low margin, because look at Tesla. I would say that they the cheap ones are not cheap, but the ones that are at the price point they need to be at are less margin right now with the volume that they're able to procure for batteries.
Of course, everyone's wanting the volume to be up to drive the battery prices down. Like that's the basic thing, right? Is the more you produce, the cheaper it gets for the next generation, for next year's cars, for next year's parts.
Yeah.
So we all want the volumes to be higher in order to drive down the prices in the marketplace for everybody. But
it's gonna be like Patrick said. Like we're gonna turn around one day, and all the gas cars will be gone. It'll just be EVs and fuel cells and whatever
you're
else.
right. As soon as it becomes just as profitable to make an EV, then it's a no-brainer. It's a switch immediately. It's shut those engine plants down. We don't need them anymore starting today. And definitely that can see is something that would be positive. I guess the other positive thing is that at least the other GM and Ford have introduced plans to build new EVs, different size EVs, different types of EVs.
That's them getting us ready because they're not going to ask us.
We
they're just
hope
going to do
that
it.
they can join in the fight and bring new EVs to the market that will fulfill other people's needs and get those EVs, because certainly any EV is better than a gas vehicle at any day. So we hope it will increase and move forward from there.
So why don't they pull the Toyota and just like eat the losses? Just do this like they did with the Prius. I know
well, look what Toyota's doing with EVs. Like it's a gradual thing. It's painfully gradual to watch Toyota do this. So yes, they've started with a couple of plugins. The second plugin is about to be introduced, the RAV4 plugin. Yeah. But man, it's been a constant battle with them to do anything with EVs, and it's still not really taken hold as far as I can see.
Toyota makes sense. They're Kodaking it, but Ford and GM have nothing to lose with this other than just a little bit of cash that they'll make up if they do it right.
Yeah, but they have, as we mentioned a couple weeks or last week on What Drives Us, they are razor close to bankruptcy in many cases. So they cannot afford to dip into the red really for any time period at all. They've got to keep their profits enough to keep above the waterline. So
true, and then those volumes, they can't afford the batteries to be cheap enough to do it. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think Toyota is going to wait until there's a battery cost breakthrough, and then they're going to jump in with both feet. And what they need to do though is stop with their Lexus ads that are EV bashing. That has to end immediately, because
self-charging hybrid.
Yeah, electric, and put the self-charging hybrid. Yeah,
plugless electric.
Exactly. And I see that at auto show, like the previous auto shows, where they had the big advertising sign, self-charging hybrid, and it's like, oh my gosh, do you not understand where the self-charging comes from? It comes from gasoline.
Yeah. Right. That's not that's fuel decharge.
Exactly. Fuel charging
in the parking lot for a week and it's full again.
Man. It just magically appears. Like solar. Man. Exactly.
Yeah.
Casey, you got a story for us about how things are going to ramp after the health crisis is over and what advantage Tesla has.
Yes. So after the current events return to normal, E4Electric is suggesting that Tesla has an advantage to get back, and I agree with that assessment. They are so vertically integrated. They don't rely too much on outside suppliers for much, and when they do, they usually make sure that there's a backup and they're interchangeable at a moment's notice. So it looks like they will be able to recover quicker, other than scooting out the ventilator lines. But everybody's going to have to do that part. So they won't have to wait for the speedometer needle maker to spin back up, the seat manufacturer, because they own the seat manufacturer. They will just be ready to start cranking out cars again.
Exactly.
Like they saw in China.
Less subs means you don't have to wait around for the sub that's the slowest in the bunch. Yeah. You get to control your own destiny. You've got your vertical integration already built in with many of the different parts. So that makes sense that they should be able to control their destiny a little better than someone that has to draw upon hundreds of subs to get the components in and make sure that they're spun up and running. They've got the employees to pump out the parts in the volume that they require. So yeah, I definitely agree with that as well.
Yeah, I saw it in action. Go ahead.
We've seen multiple cars that were delayed due to supply issues, especially around batteries. Volkswagen, Jaguar, others. So.
Yep. So on my Model S, there was a faulty or not up to spec driver's seat. And so they contacted their seat manufacturer at the time and told them to make me a seat. And they said, all right, we'll get to it. And then they fired the seat manufacturer and picked up a new one. And so then I went to the back of the line, and then they fired them and brought it in-house. And I went back to the back of the line again. And 5-6 months after I ordered my driver's seat, it showed up.
Wow.
Wow.
They came out to my office and installed it right there in the parking lot.
You should be honored that they fired all those suppliers based on your seat order not being filled properly.
Right?
Casey's not happy. Fire those.
The sub read it. Who's this Casey Green guy? Why do I have to make another seat for this guy? Because the last sub got fired. That's why you have to make that seat. Oh,
Yes.
man.
But like they kept me. It was just something they don't do anymore. They kept me abreast of what's going on each step. They're like, all right, your order's in the queue, and then nothing. Oh, all right, your order is in the line, and we fired them. All right, your order is back at the back of the line. Weeks later, all right, your order is at the head of the line again. Oh, it's canceled again.
We fired them again.
All right, we brought it in house, and then once they brought it in house, all right, it'll be ready next week. What? I don't believe you.
Yeah, after 5 months of runaround, yeah.
Yeah, nor would I.
It's on the truck. It's on the truck to the service center. Oh,
Sure
okay.
it is. Yeah.
Today is April 1st, right? So yeah.
Right.
And sure it is. Sure.
And then I said, all right, now the guy will be here tomorrow. Does that work for you? He'll be in town. We can squeeze you in between these two appointments. Yeah, I'll take my seat. Thank you.
Oh, man. So all that time you were driving around with a car with a lawn chair in place of a seat, right?
That's how it felt. It was technically safe, but it was noisy and a little wobbly.
The Tommy Bahama chair.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible, terrible. Well, our next story is a photograph, which really tells the story quite easily. So let me just share this.
Oof.
Oh.
So we had a gentleman that had decided in his Model Y performance that he was going to do a little debadging. And as you can see, that's not going to be quite as easy as the Model 3 when you want to debadge your car, because they now have pilot holes drilled through the hood for placement of the front logo on the front. So that's going to be a disappointment to some who like a red badge or a black badge, something new in place, or would like no badge whatsoever. You've got to fill in those holes, get it painted, and that's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to do.
I found some silver lining in this, because when we spoke about this before the show, I was equally dismayed. The silver lining is that if your car goes in for any sort of body work, you don't have to worry about them putting it on straight anymore.
Yes.
That's
they are
true.
nice guide holes, yeah. And those replacement ones that are red or black, well, now they can make them with the right alignment too. So
the only people who are hurt by this are the people who want to debadge it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Cybertruck, no badges.
Yeah, none whatsoever. So
that wasn't the final version though, so you don't know for sure what's gonna be in the final.
Someone did ask Franz, I believe. Someone asked about the lack of badging. He said there's gonna be no badging on this truck.
I wonder if it's gonna be on the steering wheel or yoke or whatever we get.
Yeah, it's a yoke. You don't know what's gonna be on it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, even if he said that, things change. They're a dynamic company. Lots of things change.
Right, but the Model 3, when you look at that, except for China, I mean, that has nothing.
I thought they were badging them now. Ours came debadged, and
now they're telling you you get the T, and then you get the dual motor or dual motor performance. But if you don't get those, then you get a blank trunk lid.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than the T.
Right.
And no carpet. Which is crazy.
Self-dimming mirrors.
Which is absolutely
No
crazy.
self-dimming
They had
mirror,
no front carpet. It's like, okay, I don't get it.
I didn't hear this carpet story. What happened?
Well, of course, as the Model 3 progressed in its build out, all of a sudden the carpet stopped showing up in cars when they were delivering them, so that you didn't have the carpet underneath the pedals or a floor mat. You weren't getting a floor mat anymore, and it's like
it became an option.
Yeah, it became an option. You had to buy them separately. And it's like, geez, come on, it's a piece of carpet. Like, okay, it's a little cheaper, yeah, but man, you're selling a pretty expensive car in some cases. It should come with a. Oh, I digress.
Yeah, they went the way of the industry on that one. I mean, you're talking some luxury cars other than Tesla still come with you have to pay extra for the floor mats.
Yeah. Next, here's something interesting. In Hawaii, Tesla Energy has bid on a huge deal for just off of Maui, one of the smaller, or is it on Maui, I believe, yeah, where they've bid on what would be one of the largest batteries in the world. And to get an idea of the size here, we're talking about 233 megapacks together. So the megapack, remember, was a 48-foot container like you'd see on the back of a transport truck, that size, 48 feet, filled with batteries and components that could allow it to run independently. And they're selling those now. Halifax or St. John,
all over.
New Brunswick got one of those. Just a single one of those. We're talking 233 of them at the site of a gas plant, and they're going to use it for storing excess energy and load peaking. So being able to shave the curve of the load off, being able to produce electricity cheaper at a different point in the day, store it, and then save it for the next day. So that's what this plant is designed specifically to do, and they figure that the cost is going to be able to support that, just in shaving off the load peaks that Hawaiians have to pay for different points of the day or night as your electricity rate fluctuates. And another idea of the size, currently South Australia has the title of the world's largest battery pack. This is going to be 6 times bigger than that one.
Wow.
So this is a massive installation that Tesla's bidding on, and again, so we don't. It's not like they have it now, but man, I gotta like their odds based on what they've done already in the market and the customers they brought over in multiple different jurisdictions, geography locations: Australia, Canada, U.S., Puerto Rico, other places where they've already had successes with this. So we'll watch this story and see if it develops into an actual sale, which would be great for Hawaii.
Yeah, they're talking almost a gigawatt hour of storage. Yep. 810 megawatt hours.
That's one big Duracell, let me tell
you. Yep.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, energy's so expensive in Hawaii that it makes sense that they should be doing stuff like this so they can maximize the whatever energy sources they have.
Yeah.
And some people are upset that this is actually coming from a gas plant. Their natural gas plant is putting the electricity in. It's not a big stretch that once the battery place is there, they could add other renewable items to the grid and still use that battery pack. So this may be an interim type thing where they're transitioning. It's great to have the storage, and once they start using that storage, putting other sources of renewable power on the grid would be very easy.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, once you have batteries, you can have intermittent sources behind it without having a huge impact to the grid. You have a nice buffer. It caches that for you. Perfect.
Yeah. And then it makes the existing infrastructure cleaner, because what we keep running into is with the peaker plants, it takes them a certain amount of time to get up to speed where they're putting out clean power that the grid can actually accept. So now the whole time it's spooling up, they can actually take that power out, and as it's ramping down, they can clean that up as well.
Yeah.
That's just to reduce the emissions, yeah.
Yep. Store it, hold it, use it later. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't need the peakers. You can run your more efficient plants. You can have the batteries take care of the fluctuations, and you can just run at a you guys, we mentioned the Chevy Volt earlier. Yeah. It's similar in that when they're in range extending mode, whenever you step on the accelerator, the engine wasn't revving up and down. It's running at a very efficient RPM, and it's holding that RPM because that's where it's most efficient. And the battery is the one that's taking the buffering and then capturing your regen. And so you can do a very similar thing here, run the gas plant much more efficiently just by having the batteries.
Yeah,
And then
sounds
again,
like
hopefully get rid of them.
yeah, my Volt sounded like it had 4 speeds.
Exactly, it's all there was. And absolutely, I can concur with that.
But as we saw with South Australia, this thing responds instantly and robustly. So this one being that much larger, they say they run it down to it gets to 50%, and then they turn on the beaker plant. So like say half the responses they make, it doesn't even need to burn any fuel whatsoever.
Yep, can be much more efficient for sure.
Yeah.
Casey, speaking of peaker plants and pollution, what do you got for us next?
So speaking of pollution, with the current, been able to notice that the pollutants in the air are going down drastically. Even here in U.S., North America, Canada, with our car culture, like you could see it instantly on the satellite data. We saw it initially over China while they were figuring out the base protocol for how the rest of the world actually wants to respond to this stuff, except for Italy and us, maybe Spain. But all over the world, you're seeing like the before and after, just 1 or 2 weeks difference with everybody. As soon as they get their lockdown order, the air is just that much cleaner. And like we saw the canals in Venice, they had less turbulence, so all the stuff settled down, and all the fresh pollutants weren't coming in. And it's like, look at that. Look at the left. That's normal day, and look at the right. That's with just the essential workers just going, and the people who are violating the that's just what those people
the ones that think they're essential but really aren't.
Right.
Yeah, Los Angeles looks so much better, and Salt Lake City and San Diego look like they've gotten rid of all the red altogether. Yeah, so that's drastically better air quality in these areas.
And
it's
Vegas basically disappeared off the map.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. And look how tight Phoenix got. I mean, that's probably some critical infrastructure right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the health crisis is definitely a horrible thing. But there are some benefits here, and there are plenty of people who aren't going to be having asthma attacks or other problems. So there are some people that are not dying because of the health crisis that we're having.
Right. And maybe this will keep up now that some of the managers and employees and companies are able to see, hey, some of us can do our jobs without going to a place.
Yeah.
Or at least a couple days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they say the meatless Mondays. I mean, it makes a difference. It's measurable, and it's exciting.
Yeah, any of that certainly. I think that after we get through this, there definitely is going to be a number of groups or a number of companies that are thinking differently about how they house their employees, where their employees go, because of course real estate's expensive. Having have an actual office downtown is pricey. If you can cut down on 25% of your staff that's going to be in that building, you get to pocket that extra money that you would typically be spending on rent if they can work from home or from other places. So certainly there's going to be a change that's coming after this health crisis is over. Like
Nikki at Transport Evolved, they're going to shut their office down after this is done. They're just going to stay in work from home mode.
Yep.
Yeah. Hers isn't the only company that's going to do that.
No, absolutely.
She said it's kind of weird now. They got to decide how they're going to cover cars when they themselves don't need a car for what they do. Yeah.
That's Next story is from Brooks at Drag Time. He, of course, got himself a Model Y Performance. He's had a Model 3 Performance, and he decided to do some dyno testing and check out what was going on between the two of them. And what he discovered was that the Tesla Y motors were a little bit more powerful than the Model 3 motors. And he also found out, he thought that the Model Y had a slightly larger battery as well. That turned out to be incorrect. He corrected himself 2 days later and said, nope, the battery, I made some mistake on the calculation. The battery is actually the same as the Model 3 battery in size. But he did confirm that the power coming from the front and rear motors were stronger in the Model Y over the Model 3. Now, what of course can be said is that we've kind of known this, that there are different levels of of motors that Tesla rates. When they build them, some of them aren't exactly to the performance that they need, and they're basically flagged as B batteries that would maybe go into a lower version of the car. I'm speaking motors, not batteries. These motors are sometimes rated differently, A, B, C, D, and the A batteries go into the performance because they hit all the performance specs, but a B battery may not be, again, it's a battery. The B motor may not always hit those specs, so it's put down in a lower level of car, so it hits the specs for that type of car, not for the performance. So we've kind of known that these different types of motors exist. So this could be just that the top of the line Model Y, they put in their A motors and that's it. And that's why maybe the specs are a little bit higher than what they were expecting.
Yeah, and I've confirmed this independently. I'm basically told that the motors and battery in my car, they're bin A, and when my fuse goes on the battery is still good, but because my fuse is a pyrotechnic fuse, so if something happens, it'll just blow up.
That's not good either.
No, it's great. It's great because the regular fuse can't react fast enough, and so it would shut down before the car has actually put out max power. But it's only good for so many full ludicrous launches. So what will happen is eventually the car will phone home and say, "Hey, I can't do this anymore." They'll call me up and schedule for a new battery, and they'll take mine out. They'll refurbish it if it needs it, but it'll get a new fuse. It'll get the regular fuse, and it'll become a warranty replacement for a 100 pack car. And then I'll get a new battery with the new fuse that's been rated for performance. So
I've seen an actual.
I don't watch that much though.
I've seen an actual surgery on someone's older Model S where they've taken. Actually, Rich Rebuilds did one where he had a signature battery pack that was in a signature car, and he was able to take out the actual battery or the fuse. And you could see what components were in that fuse and the little tabs that had burnt off as over time, over the years that it's gone through those stresses, and some of the fuses the fuse was partially gone. And then at one point it completely gave up, and that's when he had to lower the battery out and replace the whole fuse.
Yep. And that's exactly how this will go. So Brooks was one of the ones I figured would get the Model Y performance first. It's always between Brooks from Drag Time, Eric Strait from Derek, and I'm drawing a blank on the third one I usually expect to see get these cars.
Is it Road and Track?
Them.
Or you mean a YouTuber?
YouTubers usually, yeah.
Then it would be the Now You Know guys?
They would be up there on the list. They don't seem to be like in the first batch most of the time, though. Okay. Yeah. I do expect them to be one of the first non-companies with a semi-truck, though. Yeah, Brooks went through what? Tesla Racing Channel is the other one I expect to rapidly go through cars. Both he and Brooks went through several Model S performances, from the 85 P85, the P85 Plus, the P100D, P100D Raven. It's incredible. Live vicariously through them.
That with the Model Y that they've made changes with the cooling because of the heat pump. Yes. And so it could be that they have just decided that now with improved cooling that you can have more power output. That could be it too. I don't know. It could just be variance within the A grade, and they just happen to the one they're comparing it. One's an A minus, one's an A plus. Or it could be cooling, or it could be other improvements. Really interesting stuff.
The car doesn't get lighter because it gets faster. So I mean, I would expect them to take the higher end of all the bins to put in the chunky monkey car.
To deal with the extra size, and weight, absolutely. Next, Casey's got a story with us for our friend over in Michigan, Mr. Sandy Munroe. What's he up to?
He is ripping up a Model Y.
Oh.
It's teardown time. Absolutely.
Yes, and he's got a couple videos out on his channel so far. I've missed all the live streams, or you gotta be a member or something. I'm not seeing where the live streams are happening, but I am. I've got all the videos queued up because I'd love to see what happens with this. They're starting with the interior, and then they're gonna work their way around to do what they do. Basically, his company rips down cars for other car companies. So it doesn't matter what it is, what brand. They get it, they rip it apart, and they catalog everything, and they make reports, very expensive reports, for these other manufacturers, so they don't have to buy the car and do it themselves, like that German company did to that poor couple's Model X.
Yeah. Load them on a plane, fly them to Germany, and then disassemble them over there. Yeah.
So he owns them. He has the right to tear them apart because they belong to him. And then he makes up the reports, and then all companies buy the data. I bet you the manufacturer themselves also buys it back to see, because he makes recommendations and evaluates them. Like with the Model 3 initially, he was very critical of it. They did another one later that he was much more complimentary on, but this one he was complimenting it out of the gate. He's like, everything that he pointed out, he's like, nobody's ever going to see this but me. But a manufacturer would notice it.
Yeah. So, and of course, if you're wondering how Sandy's doing, yes, he's got two people in his shop, himself and the cameraman. They're wearing masks as they take the car apart. And then what they're doing is they take all the internal components, the seats and all of it goes out, and they lay it outside the shop. Then someone comes by, picks up all the seats, takes them to their house, and they take them apart and make the report on just the seats. And then they take another component. It goes outside the shop. Someone drives by, picks up the motor. They go do it. So
social distancing.
Social distancing as they take apart this car. And of course, you can follow Sandy Munroe on his channel. Just look up on YouTube. Sandy Munro is how it's spelt. Yeah. So Munroe and Associates.
As a tangent to this, I wanted to point out I heard about somewhere that Ford is doing their model or their Mach E on work from home, so the engineers all get a prototype to take home. They take their laptop and they're working on the firmware, the maps, the motor controllers, everything. Upload it to the car, upload it to the software repository, go do the test drive, come back to the house, and then they report on it. I imagine Tesla was already doing that, but it's just awesome to see.
That's interesting, yeah. That they're writing the code in their house, upload it into the car, then go for a test drive. And if they don't come back, Ford knows there's a problem, right?
Right.
If the car never arrives back in the driveway, yeah.
Because they're tracking them. But then if it is good, they not only have they already checked it in, they say this check-in was verified, it met these criteria, and then the next engineer can take it and run with it. Like say the GPS guy was doing this, and now the guy whose job it is, I say guy, but you know what I mean, the person whose job it is to do the radar cruise, they now know, all right, I'm coming up to a traffic light or I'm coming onto the highway. I need to be ready for these parameters, and let me make sure that the code does what it's supposed to do. Oh, I got to tweak it. And then everybody get that update the next day, the next hour, whatever. It's awesome.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I've got some late breaking news I didn't even put in the show notes for these guys. It turns out that Iceland now has a new #1 car seller, and that's Tesla.
Of course.
So Tesla just started to introduce cars in Iceland, and bar none, Tesla now has jumped to the head of the chart as the #1 brand selling in Iceland, electric or not.
Is that full fleet or Model 3?
I believe it's Model 3. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
If you're in Iceland and you're watching our video, please leave a comment down below and say Tesla #1 here.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Let's go to Patrick for some parting comments.
Sure. So I like the idea of, Casey, you mentioned Meat Free Monday. We need to come up with like a Commute Free Wednesday.
Yeah, I like
it. Or something like that.
Work from home Wednesday.
Yeah, work from home. Yeah, so you can practice Meat Free Monday and work from home Wednesday. I love it. Taco Tuesdays in between.
There you go.
After Taco Tuesday, you should probably work from home.
Yeah. Talk about a low stress week. That's great.
Oh man.
I think we just found a show title in there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, for my shout out, I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and we're on Facebook and Twitter. If you're on one of those platforms, give us a follow. Thanks.
Fantastic. Mr. Green, what have you got for us this week?
That's me. So I've got a YouTube channel. It's Casey Green. That's KACEYGREEN. That's youtube.com/Casey Green. And I make videos about Tesla, EVs. I've got the video out of my camera and into my editing deck. So sometime by the weekend, I should have a video on 2020.12.1, 2020.12, 2020.8.1, and whatever I was working on before that, as well as the 2020.12.1 maps. And I tend to go a little more in depth, so you won't get the first day rush. Oh, it's good. I will rush to get not the video out, but to get the firmware installed so I can start noticing things for you guys. And that'll be up there on the channel shortly, so check it out.
Very good. Very good. Well, I would like to say if you've stayed this long into the broadcast, please give us a thumbs up. Help us out. That gets us in the eyes of other new people. Also, if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. Give us a sub. That helps. The numbers help us as well. We would really appreciate that. I'd like to thank Mr. Lee Moon for providing our music that we use at show start and show end. Very appreciative, Lee. Thanks so much. And I guess that's about it. So we would like everyone out there to be safe, help flatten the curve, help us all to help ourselves. So please, everyone be on board, follow your local and state and federal authorities, and let's try to get through this as quickly as we can. With that, let's roll the music, and we will say, follow us next week and find out what's going on in the Tesla life. Good night, everybody. Have yourselves a great week.